and welcome to the second video in our module on R programming, where we're going to look today at the Magrittr package. You may be familiar already with the pipe. We'll talk for a minute about the pipe and then about some of the other Magrittr functions that are there for you. And then we'll talk about the basics of function writing, when you want to write a function and what that should look like. So as usual, we'll start with librarying tidyverse. And then let's look for just a second at the mtcars data set. Okay, so I can see that this data set has got a lot of different variables in it. And if I want to maybe select out certain ones of these variables, I can use the select verb and say maybe I want to select the MPG, the cylinders, the displacement, and the horsepower. Okay, so when I run that, I get that subset, but now it's not saved anywhere. So I have choices here, especially if I'm going to go on and do some other analysis to this. So perhaps then I want to filter and take those with a horsepower, say, over 100. Well, so my choices are, let's see, I could do something like, we could take that data set and I could save it as mtcars2, right, to give it an intermediate name. And then when I wanted to operate on that, I could say, okay, take mtcars2, and we want to, on that one, we want to filter that data set, selecting the horsepower greater than 100. Right, so when we do this, we get that subset, but now we have to save that in another intermediate object. So we could do that, or we can nest, we could overwrite our original one, in which case we've lost that original mtcars data set. Or we could nest the commands, so I could filter, instead of putting mtcars2 here, now I could filter, and then within that I select mtcars, the MPG, the cylinders, displacement, horsepower. And you can see if I've got multiple operations here, that gets really difficult to read. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the Magrittr package called the pipe. So in the first case, when I have this, what I can do is I can actually send in the mtcars data set. So this says take the mtcars data set, then select. So now I no longer need that as the first entry. So I'm going to select these things, and this pipe is read as then. So then I want to filter where the horsepower is bigger than 100. Now when I have multiple commands to do, and maybe follow this with a ggplot, right, then the pipe is much more convenient to use. Now you'll notice though, this did not change what's in mtcars because I did not assign it anyplace. So I would either have to assign it back to mtcars, or I could assign it to another data set name. Now another useful Magrittr function is called explode, and it is written with the $sign in between. And the reason it's used with the $sign is because in base R, when you are, let me library in Magrittr because this is not part of the basic package. So when I wanted to do, say, a correlation, I could do correlation, but I would say mtcars, and I would give the $sign to say I want the displacement of that data set in mtcars $MPG. So that's another way that's a way to do the correlation, right? But if I'm piping them in, I can do mtcars, and then instead I can put the explode in there, which says I want to use that data set to go in front of each of the items that I give. So that does the same thing. Okay, so that's a way to use explode. Another thing you can do is, some of you may be familiar with attach. If you attach mtcars, this has the same effect as using the explode, but I must attach one data set at a time and reference that one, and then when I attach the next one, it's going to reference that one, whereas the explode just says apply it to this set of objects. I guess we're at the end of video 1 of this video. Pick up for video 3, where we'll talk about the steps of writing a function.